It started with a lie. Not a big one, not at first, just something stupid I said to get my ex off my back. But somehow, that one throwaway comment turned into a weekend trip, a fake boyfriend, and a night that changed everything. Let me back up. My name's Derek. I'm 27, live in Chicago, work in a mid-tier marketing job that's mostly emails and pretending to care about SEO metrics. Nothing glamorous. I live alone in a small studio apartment with bad plumbing and worse insulation, and I've been single for almost 2 years. The ex in question? Brian. We broke up for good reasons. He wanted something more open, more flexible, and I didn't. No hard feelings, at least not anymore. But he's always had this way of making me feel like I lost. So when he texted me about our mutual friend's wedding, "Hey, are you bringing anyone? I'll be there with Jake." I panicked. I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes, then typed back, "Yeah, I am. My boyfriend's coming." I don't know why I said it. He didn't even reply, just liked the message and moved on with his life. And I sat there on my couch, phone in hand, realizing I had exactly 3 weeks to conjure up a boyfriend. I vented about it the next day while working from my favorite coffee shop. My best friend Connor was sitting across from me, headphones around his neck, poking at his cinnamon roll like it had offended him. "You're such a dumbass," he said, but he was grinning. "I know," I muttered. But what was I supposed to say? "No, I'm going alone because I haven't had a real connection since Brian dumped me during a brunch reservation?" He shrugged. Could have just ghosted the whole thing. Can't. It's Sadie's wedding. She's one of my oldest friends, and I already RSVP'd. Connor leaned back in his chair, studying me. "So what? You need someone to pretend to be your boyfriend for a weekend?" I groaned. "God, when you say it like that, it sounds pathetic." He tapped his fingers against the table. "I could do it," I looked up. "Do what?" "Be your fake boyfriend." I blinked. "Shut up." He shrugged again like it was nothing. "Why not?" "I've got nothing going on that weekend. I like Sadie. Plus, it's Vermont in the fall. Sounds nice. Cozy. Apples and leaves and all that shit." "You're not serious?" He grinned. "Dead serious." Connor and I had been friends since college. He was the type of guy people remembered. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that scruffy, casual confidence that made him hot even in flannel pajama pants and bed hair. He worked as a photographer and always smelled faintly like coffee and cedar. We'd never hooked up, never even flirted, and I had no plans to change that. But the idea of spending a weekend pretending to be in love with him, that felt like playing with fire. Still, I didn't say no. That's how, 2.5 weeks later, I found myself loading our bags into Connor's beat-up Subaru, headed for a scenic inn in Vermont, where half my high school friends would be, and where Brian would definitely be watching me like a hawk. Connor was humming along to some indie playlist as he drove, sunglasses perched on his nose, arm resting out the window. He looked relaxed, like this was just another road trip. Me? I was spiraling. "What if people can tell we're faking?" I asked, fiddling with the label on my water bottle. Connor glanced at me. "Then we suck at acting, but I doubt it. People see what they want to see." "And Brian? He's not stupid." "Then let's not give him a reason to doubt." I frowned. "What does that mean?" Connor smirked. "It means, if we're gonna do this, let's do it. Hold hands, steal kisses, share a bed." I choked. "Wait, what?" "We're faking a relationship, Derek," he said matter-of-factly. "Couples sleep in the same bed. Or do you want to make things more suspicious?" I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Relax," Connor said, patting my thigh. "I don't bite. Unless you want me to." My stomach did something weird. Was he joking? Of course he was. I told myself that at least 5 more times over the next few hours. But that night, when we checked into the inn and the front desk lady smiled and said, "Queen bed, right?" And Connor didn't even blink before saying yes, I realized this weekend might get more complicated than I'd planned. And that was before the first kiss. We were barely 10 minutes into the welcome dinner when Brian spotted us. He was standing near the open bar, hand lazily resting on the small of Jake's back, eyes scanning the room like he was some kind of royal host. His expression shifted the second he saw me, somewhere between surprise and smug satisfaction, until he noticed Connor standing beside me, a hand casually placed on my lower back. And I swear to God, I felt that touch like a live wire. "Showtime," Connor whispered under his breath, giving me a look that was way too confident for someone about to pretend to be my boyfriend in front of a bunch of strangers. I was sweating under my sweater. Brian made his way over in that smooth, unbothered way he always had. Jake followed, a tall, blonde guy with kind eyes and arms too big for his sweater. Probably nice. Probably boring. Probably exactly Brian's type. "Derek," Brian said, his voice just condescending enough to set my teeth on edge. "You made it." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Wouldn't miss it." "And this must be," he gestured, eyebrows lifted. "Connor," my boyfriend said, offering his hand. "Nice to meet you." Brian hesitated a beat too long before shaking it. "Wow," he said, turning back to me. "You didn't say he was hot." Connor grinned. "He undersells me. It's one of his cuter flaws." I nearly choked. Jake chuckled politely. Brian didn't. "Well," Brian said, clearing his throat, "we should catch up later. Derek, it's been too long." "Sure," I said, already regretting this entire charade. As they walked away, Connor leaned in close, his lips near my ear. "So, how'd I do?" I exhaled slowly, terrifyingly well. "Good," he said. "We've got the whole weekend, babe." And that's when he did it. He kissed me. Right there in the middle of the rustic inn dining hall, surrounded by people I grew up with, Connor put his hand gently on the side of my neck and kissed me like we'd done it 1,000 times before. It wasn't over the top, not a showy tongue down your throat thing. Just soft, lingering, careful, too careful. When he pulled back, he didn't say anything, just smiled, eyes searching mine, like he was making sure I was okay. I wasn't. I'd known Connor for years, slept over at his place, fallen asleep on his shoulder during long flights, watched him date and dump and get dumped. And not once had I ever kissed him. And now I had. And it felt real. Too real. Later that night, after the welcome dinner wound down and the group moved to the bonfire pit for drinks and games, Connor and I headed back to our room. The air was cold, our breath visible in the moonlight as we walked in silence. I kept thinking about the kiss. I kept wondering if he did too. Inside, the room was dim, cozy, all wood paneling and plaid accents. The queen bed in the middle might as well have been a minefield. Connor kicked off his boots and flopped onto the mattress like it was nothing. That bed better be as soft as it looks. I stayed frozen by the door. He glanced up. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just processing." He sat up a little, voice gentler. "We don't have to do anything weird, you know? Just sleep. I'll stay on my side." "You kissed me," I said, and immediately wanted to take it back. I didn't mean to make it sound like an accusation. Connor didn't flinch. "I know." "Why?" He scratched the back of his neck. "Because Brian was watching. Because it felt like the right move. Because I wanted to." I blinked. "Wait, what?" He met my eyes. "Derek, I've kissed a lot of people. That wasn't fake." My stomach turned over. He pulled back the covers, motioned for me to get in. "Come on. Long day tomorrow. Wedding stuff. We've got to keep up appearances." I slid into bed, my whole body buzzing. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. Because I was already unraveling. I didn't sleep much that night. Connor did. Of course he did. He was sprawled out beside me, one arm thrown above his head. His breathing soft and even, like he hadn't just kissed his best friend and then said it wasn't fake. Like that wasn't the single most confusing sentence anyone had ever said to me. I lay there on my side, facing away from him, staring at the faint glow of the hallway light leaking in from beneath the door. My thoughts ran in circles, chasing each other until they blurred. Connor and I had always been close, but never like this. We weren't the kind of friends who flirted for fun or crossed lines. Our friendship was steady, solid, safe. And now we were tangled in some fake boyfriend act that was suddenly veering into not-so-fake territory, and I didn't know how to feel about it. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I must have drifted off, because the next thing I remember is sunlight bleeding in through the window blinds and Connor stirring beside me. "Morning," he mumbled, voice raspy. I turned toward him without thinking, and our faces ended up way too close. His hair was a mess, flattened on one side, and he looked unfairly good for someone who just woke up. "Hey," I said, barely above a whisper. He blinked at me for a moment, like he was trying to remember where we were and why we were in the same bed. Then he smiled, sleepy, crooked. "You drool," he said. I shoved him. "Do not." He laughed, rolling away and stretching like a cat. "Totally do." I watched him move, how his shirt had ridden up, how the waistband of his boxers peeked out above his pajama pants, and then quickly looked away. Jesus. This was dangerous. We got dressed in a half-silent rhythm, like we'd done it 100 times before. He wore a casual button-up with rolled sleeves and jeans that hugged him in all the ways jeans should not hug a best friend. I threw on a sweater, jeans, and tried not to think too hard about the day ahead. Breakfast was a group affair, long wooden tables and buffet trays full of eggs and bacon. The wedding party had some pre-ceremony activities planned, lawn games, a hike, the usual outdoorsy Vermont nonsense. Brian, of course, was already there, holding court like the groom wasn't the one getting married. He waved us over as soon as he saw us. "Hey, lovebirds," he said with a smirk. "Sleep okay?" Connor didn't miss a beat. "Great, though he hogs the blanket like it's his job." Brian raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" I grinned, playing along. "He kicks in his sleep." Connor reached for my hand under the table. Just a light touch, casual, but it lingered, and I felt every second of it. We made it through the rest of the morning on autopilot, playing horseshoes with Sadie's cousins, dodging passive-aggressive comments from Brian, and pretending not to notice how often Connor found little ways to touch me. A hand at my lower back, a thumb brushing my knuckles, a squeeze on my shoulder that lasted just a second too long. By the time we got back to the room to get ready for the ceremony, I was fraying at the edges. Connor tugged off his shirt without warning, grabbing a fresh one from his bag. I looked away instinctively, but not fast enough. His back muscles moved under his skin like a goddamn Calvin Klein ad. "Need help with your tie?" he asked, already buttoning up. "I'm good," I said, voice a little too tight. He gave me a look, the kind he always gave me when he knew I was lying. "You're weird today," he said. I hesitated. "You kissed me." "I know," he said, calm. "And I told you. It wasn't just for the act." "You keep saying that, but..." I trailed off. Connor stepped closer, suddenly right in front of me. "But what?" I swallowed. "We're friends." "Yeah," he said. "We are." "Then what is this?" He stared at me, long enough that I started to feel unsteady. Then, without a word, he reached for my tie and started fixing it. His fingers were careful, practiced, brushing against my neck. I couldn't breathe. When he was done, he smoothed the front of my sweater. "You look good." "Connor." He stepped back. "Let's just get through today, okay?" I nodded, but the knot in my chest didn't loosen. Because that answer didn't actually answer anything. The ceremony was perfect. Golden leaves drifted down like lazy confetti. Sadie looked radiant in a simple lace dress, her husband-to-be crying the moment she walked down the aisle. Everyone sniffled and clapped and smiled in that way people only do at weddings, when everything feels soft and hopeful. And me? I sat next to Connor, his thigh pressed against mine, our fingers laced together for appearances, or maybe not just for that. The officiant said something about love being a choice, about showing up for each other even on the hard days. Connor squeezed my hand at that part. I wasn't sure if it meant anything. The reception was a blur. Toasts, food, dancing. More champagne than I should have had. Brian made a weird speech that definitely wasn't approved by Sadie. something half sarcastic, half sentimental that left everyone vaguely uncomfortable. Jake, bless him, tried to recover by offering shots to the whole table. Connor and I danced once, just one slow, lazy spin during a mellow indie track. His hand rested low on my back, and mine hovered awkwardly at his shoulder, like I didn't quite know what to do with it. "You always this stiff?" he teased. "I don't usually dance with fake boyfriends," I muttered. He grinned, close enough for me to smell the faint citrus of his cologne. "Then relax, I've got you." I hated how much I liked the way that sounded. When the song ended, I pulled away faster than I meant to and muttered something about needing air. I stepped outside, the cool night air biting at my flushed skin. The stars were out, Vermont quiet and still around me. I leaned against the wooden railing of the deck, letting myself breathe. Why the hell was this getting to me? It was supposed to be simple. A fake date, a lie to make me look less alone. Connor had been doing me a favor, that was all. But the lines were blurring, and I wasn't sure if I wanted them to stop. "Hey," came a voice behind me. I didn't need to look to know it was him. "You disappeared," Connor said, stepping up beside me. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Just needed some air." We stood there for a while, silence stretching between us. Then, softly, "This is weird, right?" Connor glanced at me. "What is?" "This. Us. Pretending." I paused. Or not pretending. He didn't answer immediately. Just looked out at the trees, his jaw tight. "I didn't think it'd mess with my head like this," I admitted. "I didn't think you'd kiss me, and it'd feel like something." Connor exhaled slowly, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat. "I didn't either." That caught me off guard. "I thought I was doing you a favor," he said. And then somewhere between fake cuddling and watching you try to dance, it stopped feeling fake. My heart did that stupid flutter thing again. "But you're straight," I said, because I had to say it. "I'm not," he said simply. I blinked. "What?" "I've never really talked about it," he said. "Didn't think it mattered. But I'm not straight, Derek. I've been with guys before, just not like this." "Like what?" He looked at me then, eyes steady. "Like it matters." I couldn't breathe. The music from inside drifted through the open windows. Another slow song, some dreamy acoustic thing. Couples swayed under fairy lights. I felt like the whole world had tilted just slightly sideways. "So what now?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. Connor stepped closer, his fingers brushing mine. "I don't know." And then, before I could overthink it, before the nerves or the doubt could stop me, I kissed him. No audience, no pretending. Just me and him and the night and a kiss that finally meant something real. His lips were warm, a little hesitant. Not like that first kiss we did for show. This one was slower, unfiltered, and careful in a way that scared the hell out of me. Connor didn't pull away. He leaned in. His hand came up to cradle the back of my neck, his thumb brushing the edge of my jaw like he'd done it before, like this was normal. Like it was okay. And for the first time in a long time, it felt okay. When we finally broke apart, our foreheads touched, his breath mingling with mine in the cold air. "Derek," he said, barely above a whisper, "this is real now." I nodded, too afraid to speak. "I'm not gonna be weird about it," he added. "I don't want to ruin what we have." "What do we have?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye. "Something worth not screwing up." I didn't say anything. Just stared at him, at the way his expression had shifted. Calmer now, but still open, still raw. Eventually, we went back inside. We didn't say anything to anyone. We didn't have to. Something between us had shifted, and whether people noticed or not didn't matter. Later, after the reception wound down and the last dance had played and the bride was asleep somewhere, with her heels kicked off and her hair undone, Connor and I slipped back into our room. He pulled his shirt off like it was just another night, like we hadn't kissed, like we hadn't pressed the boundary between friendship and something more just hours earlier. I watched him brush his teeth in the mirror, his reflection calm while mine looked like it had been struck by lightning. "You okay?" he asked, noticing my silence. I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." He didn't push. We got into bed like before, shoulder to shoulder, blanket shared, but this time it felt different. This time, I didn't lie facing away from him. I turned toward him. So did he. Our faces were close again, too close. I could smell the mint on his breath, see the sleep already pulling at the corners of his eyes. "I wasn't planning on this," I said, voice quiet in the dark. "Me either," he replied. "Are you freaked out?" He paused for a moment. Then, "No, just trying not to overthink it." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Yeah, same. We didn't kiss again that night. We didn't even touch." But his knee bumped mine under the blanket, and neither of us moved. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, everything felt awkward again. Not in a bad way, just new, unspoken. Connor made coffee in the tiny in-room Keurig while I packed. We didn't say much. The quiet wasn't tense, but it wasn't quite comfortable either. Not yet. In the car, as we pulled out of the inn's gravel driveway and headed back toward the city, he finally spoke. "So what happens when we're back?" I swallowed. "You tell me." "I don't want to go back to pretending." "Me either." He glanced at me, one hand on the wheel. "Then, maybe we don't." We didn't make any big declarations. We didn't define anything. But that night, when we got back to my place, Connor didn't just drop me off. He parked, came upstairs, stayed the night, and the night after that, and the one after that, until eventually, he just never really left. At first, it felt like a dream. Connor didn't make a big deal out of staying over. He just sort of was there. His duffel bag migrated from the hallway to the bedroom. A spare toothbrush appeared next to mine. His jacket found its way to the back of my kitchen chair, like it had always belonged there. And I didn't mind. I liked waking up to the sound of him in the kitchen, swearing softly as he tried to figure out my cheap French press. I liked brushing my teeth next to him. I liked the lazy way he'd fall asleep beside me, his hands sometimes draped across my waist like it had a claim to be there. But still, I couldn't shake the question, what are we? We never talked about it. Not directly. There were moments, like when his hand found mine under the table at a crowded brunch spot, or when he pulled me closer on the couch during a dumb movie, that felt like something. But neither of us said it out loud, and silence has a way of growing heavy. One night, about 2 weeks after we got back from the wedding, I came home from work to find him cooking in my kitchen, shirtless, music playing low. It should have felt domestic. Sweet. But all I could think about was how much I didn't know. "Hey," he said when I walked in, flashing that easy smile. "I made pasta. Or tried to. You don't own a strainer, by the way." I dropped my bag. "I do. You just never look." He laughed and went back to stirring sauce like nothing was wrong. And maybe nothing was wrong. But something felt unfinished. Over dinner, I finally said it. "So, are we gonna talk about it?" Connor looked up from his bowl. "Talk about what?" I swallowed. "Us." He leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. I went on. "I mean, are we dating? What is this?" He was quiet for a beat too long. "I don't know," he admitted. "I didn't think we had to label it." "That's easy for you to say," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "You don't have people asking if we're a thing. You don't have Brian texting out of nowhere to ask if it was real." He blinked. "Brian's texting you? That's not the point." "Then what is?" "The point is, I'm tired of guessing," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. "I just want to know where I stand." Connor set his fork down. "I like being here," he said. "With you. I'm not playing a game, Derek. I don't know what I'm doing yet. This is new for me too." That should have made me feel better. But it didn't, because I'd been here before, with someone who liked me enough to stay over, to sleep beside me, to kiss me when it felt good, but not enough to choose me out loud. I don't need a whole speech, I said, standing up. I just need to know if you're in this, or if I'm setting myself up to get hurt again. Connor stood too. I'm not, Brian. I know, I said quietly, but I need to know you're not just passing time. He was quiet again. Then, finally, I'm not. It wasn't a grand gesture. No sweeping romance. Just that. I'm not. But somehow, that was enough to stop me from packing him a bag and asking him to leave. He didn't try to fix it that night. Didn't over-explain or make promises he couldn't keep. But when we went to bed, he pulled me close. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself believe maybe he meant it. The weeks that followed were better. Not perfect, not a movie montage of domestic bliss, but better. Connor didn't start calling me his boyfriend, and I didn't push, but he stayed. He started leaving clothes in my drawers, texting me from work to ask what we should make for dinner. He started talking about we in little ways. Should we go to that concert? Do we like this new coffee place? It was subtle, but I noticed, and I tried to let it be enough. Until one Friday night when we went to a friend's party. Just a small get-together. Beer, chips, music, familiar faces from college, and some people I hadn't seen in years. We arrived together, Connor's hand on the small of my back as we walked in, and I felt good. Like this was ours. Until someone asked the question, "So are you guys dating?" Connor laughed. Not cruelly, not dismissively, just lightly, like it wasn't a serious question. "We're close," he said, flashing a grin. And maybe I imagined it, but it felt like a pivot. Like he was sidestepping something. Like close was a safe word, one that didn't force him to say yes or no. The friend nodded and moved on. And so did the night. But I couldn't. We left early, said we were tired, but really, I just couldn't stand being in a room full of people who didn't know what we were, when I wasn't sure I knew either. Back at my apartment, I didn't say anything, just kicked off my shoes and went to the sink to pour a glass of water, Connor watching me from the doorway. "You're quiet," he said. I didn't turn around, just tired. "Is this about the party?" I stared at the sink, water running. "You could have said we were together," I said finally. "It's not a hard word." He stepped closer. "I didn't know if that's what you wanted me to say." I turned. "Connor, I asked you 2 weeks ago if this was real. You said it was. So yeah, I thought you'd say it." He looked frustrated, but not at me, at himself. "I'm not used to this," he said. "Putting labels on things, saying stuff out loud that I'm still figuring out in my own head." "You don't have to figure it out alone," I said, "but I need to know you're not just going to disappear when it gets complicated." "I'm not going anywhere." "You say that," I replied, "but you don't act like it." He looked down, then back at me. "You want me to say it? Fine. We're together. I'm with you. That's what this is." The words hit harder than I expected. Maybe because they were loud, clear, real. "Okay," I said softly. Connor stepped forward, hands finding my waist. "You scare the hell out of me, you know that?" I let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah, you too." He pulled me in, and this time, when we kissed, it didn't feel confusing or fragile. It felt like the start of something real. Not perfect, but real. It's been 3 months since that night. Connor still leaves socks in weird places, still forgets to buy toilet paper when it's his turn, still makes coffee way too strong and hogs the blankets like he's trying to burrito himself to death. But now, he also kisses me good morning before either of us brushes our teeth, holds my hand in public without needing a cue, calls me babe in that lazy, teasing voice that used to only be reserved for jokes, and yeah, we're together. I didn't think a fake date to a wedding would end in anything real. I didn't think Connor, of all people, would be the one to finally undo the wall I built around myself after Brian. I thought it was just a role we were playing, but it turns out sometimes pretending uncovers the thing you were too scared to admit you wanted all along, a real connection. The kind that doesn't need to be perfect to be worth it, we're still figuring things out. We fight sometimes about dumb things, like whether you need to rinse pasta after boiling, you don't, or whose Spotify playlist is more road trip appropriate. But the difference now is, we fight like people who know they're not going anywhere. He's not a guest in my life anymore. He's part of it. Last weekend, he tossed me his hoodie and said, "Wear this today. Looks better on you anyway." And it hit me. How far we'd come from those early days. From quiet nights on the couch pretending not to feel too much. From that first kiss outside the wedding venue, both of us trying not to break the moment. I wore the hoodie. Of course I did. And when we were walking through the grocery store later, bickering about almond milk, he reached for my hand again without thinking. Not for a performance. Not to prove anything to anyone. Just because he wanted to. And I let him. Because somehow, against every expectation, this thing we started as a lie, it turned into the most honest thing I've ever had.